girl who lived backwards. I noticed her first at dusk, standing on the corner as the city hurried by. Everyone else moved forward, chasing errands and evening plans, but she walked backward, precise, deliberate, as though reality itself bent around her. Her hair fell the wrong way, catching the last rays of sunlight. Shadows twisted unnaturally beneath her feet. I assumed it was some street performance, but nobody else noticed. People brushed past, eyes forward, oblivious. Only I could see her. Curiosity gnawed at me. Every instinct warned me to keep distance, but I felt compelled to follow. Step by step, I matched her backward pace. Each step felt wrong, defying natural rhythm, and I noticed the buildings subtly warped behind her, letters on signs flipping backward. She turned her head toward me. Dark eyes that seemed to contain impossible events stared back. And then, as if reading my mind, she warned, "You shouldn't follow." My heart raced. Against every impulse, I stepped closer. Every shadow around me trembled in response. The air thickened as we entered a narrow alley I'd never seen. Time seemed to slow. Streetlights flickered. Cars passed in reverse, wheels spinning backward. A man walking toward us unwound into the street, groceries returning into bags as if reality itself was undoing. I stumbled, gripping the wall. She paused, tilting her head, beckoning without speaking. My voice caught in my throat. And right here, I whispered a sub-ask for anyone listening. If you're seeing this, subscribe now. You'll need Hull eyes when things get this strange. She continued backward, guiding me toward a brick doorway. Shadows stretched, elongating across walls like black smoke. My phone screen glitched, flickering images of streets I hadn't yet visited. I realized her backward movement was pulling the world with her. At the doorway, she stopped. I noticed letters on the door reversed, symbols unfamiliar, yet vaguely known. The moment I reached for the handle, I felt a tug at my chest, like gravity itself had shifted. My shadow detached, stretching toward hers. The corridor beyond twisted reality. Reflections multiplied, some moving forward, others backward. Every door I passed led back to her. Every mirror showed distorted versions of me, acting out moments I hadn't yet lived. My heart thumped, each beat echoing in reverse. She paused near a heavy, engraved door. Her figure aligned perfectly with its edges, unnatural in its symmetry. She extended her hand backward, beckoning me further. The air buzzed with tension, static humming around me, pressing against my skin. I stepped through, and the alley vanished. I was in a mirrored corridor, infinite and warped. Every reflection acted slightly out of sync, as if rehearsing a life I hadn't yet led. The walls pulsed subtly, breathing around me, and a chill sank into my spine. She whispered in my mind, "Time bends for me. Now it bends for you." I tried to ask how or why, but the corridor swallowed my words. I felt my choices being undone and redone, rewinding events I hadn't yet experienced. Minutes or hours passed, I couldn't tell. My hands sometimes moved backward, my thoughts racing forward to catch up. Reflections multiplied infinitely. I saw myself performing actions I had yet to take, grinning before I grinned, whispering before I spoke. She led me to a massive door engraved with unfamiliar symbols. I knew I shouldn't enter, but I couldn't resist. The corridor's reflections writhed, twisting violently as I approached. Every fiber of my being screamed to turn back. I touched the cold metallic handle. Reality trembled. My own reflection fractured, multiplying into dozens of wrong versions of me. Clocks on the wall spun backward, their ticking echoing like a heartbeat out of sync. I tried to pull away, but something stronger than me held fast. Inside, the room defied natural order. Furniture floated backward, clocks rewound, shadows danced in impossible angles. She gestured, backward, into the room's center. My shadow detached, merging with hers. Every movement I made now controlled the rhythm of the room. I felt weightless, untethered from my own time. Every breath, every heartbeat echoed backward in a terrifying cadence. Her eyes glowed faintly, reflecting all possible futures. I realized I wasn't following her anymore. I was part of her backward world. Days, hours, or years passed. Time itself became elastic. I glimpsed fleeting images of her in every mirror, beckoning, always retreating, always guiding me deeper. I struggled to distinguish my thoughts from hers, my actions from reflections. The corridor's doors multiplied endlessly, yet all led to her. I tried resisting, but each choice pulled me deeper into her rhythm. Reflections twisted violently, showing futures I feared and pasts I didn't remember. Every wrong reflection of myself whispered, "She is inevitable." Finally, she paused. The massive door before me pulsed, light spilling out unnaturally. I knew crossing it would change everything, yet I was compelled. My shadow twined with hers, reality folding and unraveling with each step I took. And then, as I stepped through, the corridor disappeared. I was trapped in a world moving backward and forward simultaneously. My life played like a film rewinding, fragments overlapping. I could feel her presence in every motion, guiding, reshaping, owning my movements. I've stopped resisting. Walking forward feels wrong, yet stepping backward feels unnatural. Every glance in a mirror reveals her influence, my face slightly wrong, my body acting independently. I am tethered to her, bound by movements I cannot control. Sometimes I catch glimpses of the city outside, flowing in both directions. People walk normally, unaware. She moves through them, backward, twisting reality around her. I am caught in her rhythm, trapped, and I know one day she will pull me completely into her world. And if you ever see her, remember, don't follow. Don't chase what seems impossible. And above all, make sure you're subscribed. You'll need all the allies you can get when you step into a world that refuses to move forward. The man who borrowed my shadow. I first noticed it walking home under the flickering streetlights, the pavement wet and reflecting neon signs from the nearby shops. My shadow didn't follow my movements exactly. It lingered a second too long when I lifted my arm, stretched oddly when I stepped forward, and hesitated like it was thinking about its next move. For a brief moment, I saw another shape layered within it, taller, sharper, with shoulders that didn't match mine. I laughed to myself, muttering about tricks of the light and exhaustion, but the unease stuck. By the time I opened my apartment door, the feeling had nested itself in my chest. Inside, the familiar smell of my apartment felt strange, heavy, as if something had been there waiting. I flicked on the light and froze. My shadow was already cast against the wall, but not like normal. It stood perfectly still while I moved, and faintly, impossibly, I could make out a face inside it. Hollow eyes, too wide a grin, teeth uneven, and too many. I forced myself to laugh. Shadows play tricks, I told myself. But I noticed details I hadn't before. The way its hand twitched even when mine was still. The way it seemed to lean forward when I leaned back. Every movement I made, it mirrored, but with subtle deviations, just enough to unsettle. At work, I tried to focus, but every glance down at my hands made me catch it lagging. My coworkers noticed my distraction and asked if I was sick. I nodded, keeping quiet, but under the fluorescent lights, I watched it mimic everything I did, only slightly off. I typed a report, and its hands froze. I lifted mine, and they still lay there, trembling as if resisting gravity. That night, I didn't sleep. Every creak, every whisper of the wind through my blinds sounded like movement in my apartment. I opened my eyes around 2 a.m, and the shadow was crawling toward the bedroom door. Its limbs stretched across the floor, dragging slowly, fingers brushing against the hardwood. I swore I heard nails scraping the boards. It paused in the doorway, head tilting unnaturally. Though it had no eyes, I felt its gaze, chilling and patient. And then it smiled. That's when I realized I needed you to hear this. Make sure you're subscribed, because this is not a story you want to experience alone. It spoke inside me, vibrating through my chest. Thank you for letting me borrow you. My knees buckled. Borrow me? I whispered, voice shaking. Soon I will need more than just your shadow, it replied. Its presence weighed on me, pressing the air from my lungs. The next day, I dared to step outside. Two shadows stretched across the wet pavement, mine and his. The second one, impossibly tall, followed perfectly, aligning and misaligning with mine. People walked past, oblivious, but I felt drawn forward, compelled to look where it gestured. Across the street, a man watched me. His shadow merged with mine. He smiled faintly, as though he had been waiting. At home, I tried to ignore it. I left the lights on, hoping sunlight would banish the darkness, but it didn't. My reflection in the mirror lagged behind my movements, each blink delayed by half a second. It leaned when I leaned, smirked when I frowned. I pressed my hand against the glass, and it did the same, slowly, deliberately. Sleep became impossible. Every sound in the night, the dripping faucet, the hum of the refrigerator, a car braking outside, felt amplified, threatening. I woke to the sensation of weight on my chest. The shadow had climbed onto my bed, limbs heavy, pinning me down. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. Its face hovered inches from mine, jaw stretching, teeth widening into a grotesque grin. Fingers of darkness sank into my skin, cold and firm. Every nerve in my body screamed to escape, but I was frozen. And then, in the faint glow of the alarm clock, I saw it reach into me, not stealing, but taking its place. When I awoke, the apartment was silent, too silent. Windows looked staged, as though the light outside had been arranged for a play. My reflection remained eerily detached, sitting slouched in my chair even as I moved. I realized it had stopped borrowing. It had begun inhabiting. I tried to speak, but my voice felt thin, echoing oddly. I wanted to scream, to run, but I knew it would chase me. Every day since, I feel less like myself. My coworkers notice small inconsistencies. The tone of my voice, the way my hands gesture. Friends claim to see me in places I've never been. Even in public, I see it everywhere. A shadow that moves independently. A shape behind glass that doesn't match mine. A reflection that lags by a second. The longer I stare, the more I understand. It's patient. It's learning. And I am fading. Some nights, I hear whispers, faint but insistent. We are becoming one. Soon you won't know where you end, and I begin. I pull the covers over my head, but the whispers burrow into the mattress, crawl across the sheets, vibrate inside my skull. Objects in the apartment have started moving on their own. My keys aren't where I left them. The fridge opens when I'm not there. The TV flickers with static, and sometimes, for a fraction of a second, I see him seated in my living room chair, watching. I've stopped looking into mirrors. I leave lights on constantly. Even my reflection in the darkened windows of passing cars seems wrong, delayed, too sharp in some angles, too hollow in others. I know he's practicing, getting closer, perfecting the imitation. The nights are worse. I hear footsteps on the stairs when I'm alone. I hear my own voice answering the phone in the middle of the night. The shadows under my feet twist and curl as if reaching for one another, stretching beyond the shape of my body, stretching toward me. I've started writing in a journal, but the ink smudges mysteriously. Every page I leave empty is filled by Maureen with his handwriting, a twisted mirror of mine. I'm learning you. Soon, I'll walk where you walk, talk as you talk, breathe as you breathe. And the worst part? The day I realized it wasn't borrowing anymore, I stepped into sunlight and saw two shadows stretching perfectly beneath me. One mine, one his. Neither matched my movements exactly. Every flick of my finger, every tilt of my head was reflected in the wrong time. Now, I live like a ghost in my own life, watching my shadow, my reflection, my body, and wondering which is truly mine. The feeling grows, spreading like a cold infection. I am becoming smaller, fading, while he grows stronger, confident, patient. Sometimes, I wake to find myself standing somewhere I don't remember going, a room I've never entered. And when I look down, my shadow is wrong, leaning into corners, stretching into corners, grinning back at me. I feel it inside, laughing softly, echoing in my chest. I can't leave, I can't fight it, and I know the truth. One day, he won't need my shadow. One day, he'll need me entirely. And when that day comes, I'll be just another trick in the light, another shadow borrowed and never returned. The man who was already sitting in my chair. I came home late that night, the kind of late where the hallways were silent and the street outside felt abandoned. My apartment door creaked open like it hadn't been touched in years, though I had left just that morning. When I stepped inside, the familiar air felt wrong, thick, heavy, like a room that had been sealed too long. I flicked on the light, expecting nothing but the quiet clutter of my living room. That's when I froze. Someone was already sitting in my chair. At first, my brain did that thing it does when something doesn't make sense. It tried to rationalize. Maybe a shadow. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe I was seeing things after too many nights, with too little sleep. But then he moved. The figure shifted casually, leaning forward. The dim light caught his face, and that's when my chest clenched. He wasn't a stranger. He looked like me. Not exactly, but close enough to make my skin crawl like an older version of myself, aged by years I hadn't lived yet. He smiled the way I do when I'm trying to seem calm, but I'm not. "Don't scream," he said, voice steady, measured. My stomach dropped, because I hadn't even opened my mouth yet. He was answering something I hadn't done. My hand instinctively grabbed the doorknob to leave, but before I could twist it, the door clicked shut on its own. Not slammed, not locked, just a soft, decisive click, like someone unseen had sealed it. His head tilted. "Where do you think you're going?" I whispered before I could stop myself. "This isn't real." His eyes narrowed, and his mouth pulled into a grin too wide for comfort. "That's exactly what you always say." He leaned back like he'd been expecting me to break down exactly this way. "There's a specific terror in seeing your own mannerisms stolen." He didn't just look like me. He moved like me. He knew how I crossed my legs, how I ran a hand through my hair, how I tried to look calm when my heart raced. My voice cracked when I asked, "What do you want?" His smile didn't change, but his eyes darkened. "What do you want?" He echoed softly. Then he leaned forward, the same thing I do. To sit where I belong, to live the life meant for me. The words slid into me like knives. Because haven't we all wondered? What if someone wanted your life badly enough to take it? What if they were patient, waiting, rehearsing every detail until they were ready to step in? I tried to rush him, adrenaline pushing me past reason. My hands grabbed his arms, desperate to pull him out of the chair. For a second, I thought I had him. Then my fingers went right through, gripping only the worn fabric of my own chair. He dissolved under my touch, his form breaking apart like smoke disturbed by a breeze. I staggered back, heart hammering, and the room seemed empty again. Except it wasn't. His laugh lingered, dripping from the walls like condensation. That's when I noticed the TV black screen unplugged, yet my reflection stared back at me. Only it wasn't mimicking me. It was still slouched in the chair, smirking like it had all the time in the world. I lifted my hand, trembling. My reflection didn't move. Instead, still seated, it raised a finger to its lips in a deliberate shushing gesture. My knees almost buckled. I wanted to run, but the air felt heavy, pressing me in place. Would you stay in that room another second, knowing your reflection wasn't yours anymore? I didn't. I bolted, slamming out of the apartment, not daring to look back. But in the stairwell, the echo of his laugh followed me, low and patient. That night, I tried to convince myself I'd imagined it. Lack of sleep, stress, my brain spinning stories. But when I returned the next day, the chair in my living room rocked slowly, back and forth, like someone had just left it. For the next week, things only got worse. Objects moved when I wasn't home. Photos of me on the wall had faint smudges where the face should be, like someone had rubbed them out with dirty fingers. One night, I found my journal open on the table. I hadn't written in it for months. But there, in handwriting identical to mine, a single line. I'm getting better at being you. Sleep became impossible. I'd wake at 3 a.m, to the sound of creaking wood, like weight shifting in the living room chair. Sometimes, I'd swear I heard my own voice, whispering from the other side of the door. And the worst part? People started treating me differently. My coworkers asked me if I was okay, if I'd been at work late at night when I wasn't supposed to be. A neighbor waved at me one evening, said he'd already spoken to me earlier that day. I hadn't left my apartment. The night that broke me, I woke up to find my bedroom door wide open. I never sleep with it open. Never. And there he was, sitting in the chair by my bed, watching me with my own eyes. This time, he didn't vanish when I lunged. He leaned forward, and I swear I felt his breath on my face when he whispered, "You're doing such a good job keeping my spot warm." I blinked, and he was gone. The chair was empty. But when I looked at the mirror across the room, the reflection sitting there wasn't me. It was him, smiling. Now I don't turn on the lights when I come home. I don't look too long at reflective surfaces. And I never, ever sit in that chair. Because deep down, I know one day he won't just be waiting. One day, he'll be the one who answers when people call my name. The passenger in the back seat I never picked up. It started on a Thursday night, long after I should have been home. The roads were empty, slick with drizzle, and my headlights cut through the dark like thin blades. I thought I was alone. At a stoplight, something shifted in the rearview mirror. Just a flicker, barely noticeable, a shadow in the back seat where there shouldn't have been one. My pulse quickened, but when I turned, the seat was empty. I told myself it was nothing. Just fatigue, a trick of the light. I drove on, but every so often, I caught the faint outline of a head in the reflection. Still, the seat remained bare. The third time it happened, I pulled over. I swung the door open, leaned back, and ran my hands across the seat, the floor, the shadows. Nothing. No one. But the air was cold, colder than the rest of the car. As I drove again, I tried to ignore it. Music on low, window cracked. But then I felt it weight shifting the suspension, as if someone heavier than me had just leaned forward. My chest tightened, my mouth went dry. I refused to look in the mirror. The feeling never left. I drove with a passenger I hadn't picked up. The next morning, my coworker glanced at my car in the lot and asked, "Who's your friend?" I froze. "What friend?" "The one in the back seat. Thought you finally got a ride home." I laughed it off, but inside, I was unraveling. That night, it got worse. Driving past a row of dark houses, I felt breath brush against my ear, faint and icy. I slammed on the brakes, turned, and once again, the seat was empty. When I checked the mirror, though, the shadow had moved. It was sitting directly behind me now, closer than before. I started sleeping at work, just to avoid the drive. But even parked in daylight, I sometimes glimpsed the faint curve of a face in the tinted glass. Then came the whispers. Soft at first, like someone mouthing words underwater. Then clearer. One word, over and over, closer. I tried blasting music. I tried praying. I tried driving with the dome light on. Nothing stopped it. One evening, I broke. I pulled into a gas station, jumped out, and tore through the backseat, screaming at nothing. The attendant stared at me like I'd lost my mind. But when I looked into the rearview mirror again, I wasn't alone. A face stared back at me, expressionless, pale, with eyes too wide to be human. I couldn't turn around. I couldn't move. I just drove, the thing behind me breathing softly, patiently, as if waiting for me to acknowledge it. By now, I've stopped fighting. I keep the mirror tilted just enough to avoid its eyes. I never drive alone anymore, even though I am. The worst part is knowing that one day, when I'm too tired, too distracted, I'll slip and look directly into the mirror. And when I do, I know I'll finally see who's been riding with me all along. If you felt someone looking over your shoulder while hearing this, subscribe to Halfway Dark. The scariest passengers are the ones you never pick up.